The next morning, Mikey awoke with a jump when his door had a loud banging sound coming from the other side. This wasn't surprising as Mikey already knew it would be Raph banging on his bedroom door, wanting breakfast at this time of morning. His eyes switched over to his Pinkie Pie doll that was lying close to him with its forelegs outstretched when he sat up from the jump. He rubbed his eyes and yawned, stretching his limbs with the sound of cracking bones accompanied by them. He slowly stood up from his bed and fixed his mask when he realized he slept with it on. When the banging came to a stop, Raph's usual grumpy voice yelled from the other side of the door. "Here, Mikey, get your lazy fat butt up and come make breakfast for us," he demanded. Mikey silently sighed to himself when he heard his older brother. He would always be so demanding and so full of commands that he grew tired of them each and every day. Relief washed over him like a wave crashing down when he heard Raph's feet stomping away from his door. When he fixed himself a bit, he looked over to Pinkie Pie. She was still in the same position as before, and thought for a moment, maybe Pinkie Pie could use some breakfast too, he thoughted. He looked at her for a good moment and smiled. He picked up the pony, named Plush, and held her like a child. "Come on, Pinkie Pie, let's go have some breakfast." With that, he opened the door. He walked to the kitchen and already saw his brothers and sister waiting inside. He felt scared to see Raph's impatient glare, but he quickly relaxed when his younger sister elbowed him in the stomach. Leo was drinking a cup of tea, and Donnie was having a large mug of coffee. He looked to his right and saw his other older brother sipping a cup of orange juice. His long green mask flowed down to the middle of his shell and looked at Mikey with a kind look. His smile was one of the things Mikey felt comfortable with. "Good morning, Ototo." He greeted politely. Mikey gave a nod as his way of greetings. "Good morning, Ollie," he greeted her back. Before Ollie could say another word, Mikey turned away and walked towards the table. The turtles watched in silence and curiosity, minus Raph, as their orange-masked brother gently placed the doll onto the table and positioned her into a sitting position. When he made sure there was no sign of her flopping over, he turned away and began his work. The smell of freshly cooking eggs and bacon filled the room, making the turtles' mouths water a bit, but they kept their professional positions. Leo and Donnie watched their younger brother work on breakfast, while Raph was growling under his breath with annoyance. Ollie tossed a worried glance over to the youngest sister, who returned him with a worried look in her eyes. Her light pink eyes stared into Ollie's dark brown ones as her seemingly calm demeanor still stayed put on her face. Strangely, she would toss a glance over to the Pinkie Pie doll. She looked at it with a feeling, as if it's telling him to keep her eyes off of it. She listened and took her sight off of the doll. She turned to Ollie with a curious look in her eyes. "Where did Mikey get that doll?" she whispered to him. Curious, since Mikey nor Donnie told her or any of their three brothers where they found a Pinkie Pie. My guess was that they found it in a trash can from where Mikey ran off of Kofu. His answer seemed to have given Kofu a moment to relax before she heard the sound of plates clunking from being bumped from one to another, then placed down onto the table. Mikey placed eggs, bacon, sausage, and toast on each plate for his siblings to enjoy. He made a cup of tea and another plate of breakfast for her Master Splinter for when he strolls into the kitchen for his share. As his brothers and sisters took their places at the table, they were surprised when they saw Mikey grab a small plate from the cabinet and place it down in front of the Pinkie Pie doll. He placed some scrambled eggs and crispy bacon onto the plate with a small cup of orange juice to the side. He pushed it close to the doll before he started to leave the kitchen. Mikey, you're not gonna join us? Kofu asked curiously. Her big brother turned to her and shook his head no. No, I'm just gonna go meditate for a bit. His response surprised the 5 turtles as their orange-masked brother walked out of the kitchen. No words came out of their mouth after Mikey left. Raph frowned and shrugged before he started to eat his breakfast. As he did, the others slowly began to eat their shares too, still unsure how to respond to each other from Mikey's behavior. As they ate, Raph glared suspiciously at the Pinkie Pie doll. Does he know that dolls don't eat? He complained. Jeez, he must be stupid for bringing that thing home. How about you just shut up, Raph? Kofu growled. Her annoyance was displayed on her face when she faced Raph. Her older brother's electric green eyes glared right into her like pink ones. Both of them growled at each other as their glares grew more intense. You shut up, Kofu. Mikey doesn't belong as a ninja, he snarled. Kofu growled and she was about to land a punch towards Raph's face when her fist was pulled back by Ollie, while the red-masked turtle was being held back by Leo and Donnie. They didn't even glance at the Pinkie Pie doll, unaware of its cerulean blue eyes, were less sparkly than before. Mikey left the kitchen. None of the turtles didn't even notice the eyes twinkle. After cleaning the dishes, the turtles decided to go watch some TV before training time in the dojo. Donnie was the first one to notice the plate of eggs and bacon and the cup of orange juice was still there, sitting in front of the Pinkie Pie doll. He smiled a little, thinking it was cute that Mikey was treating it like it was a real human child. When he looked at her closely, his smile grew a bit when he took a good look at the doll. Pinkie Pie looked like a brand new doll with no more smudges of dirt, and no longer were there rocks and glass shards stuck into her like needles stabbing into a pincushion. His hazel brown eyes caught a glimpse of her eyes, and his smile was wiped off. He saw Pinkie Pie's eyes, slightly dimmer and less sparkly than he last saw them. Seeing them was suddenly unsettling to Donnie. Not understanding if they were like this before, or they had always been dim and dull, Donnie quickly left the kitchen so he wouldn't continue staring at her like a fool, because he remembered how Mikey was acting when April stitched up the rips on the doll. He walked towards the others with ease and sat down between Ollie and Raph. Donnie could tell Raph was still very agitated from his and Kofu's arguing at breakfast. Ollie was calmly reading a comic, and Leo was enjoying his time watching Space Heroes. He looked up towards the dojo, remembering Mikey telling him and the others he was going to meditate instead of eating breakfast with them. Speaking of which, Mikey was in the dojo in a lotus position. His fingers and thumbs were pressed together as his eyes were shut, and he was focusing in his own mind. As he was meditating, Kofu watched him worry of how her brother's behavior was changing. Her worried expression never changed when she watched him silently in awe. I hope this isn't permanent, she thought to herself, before she turned away from him and saw Master Splinter enter the dojo.